Moving now to the conflict with India. Donald Trump has gone off on the Indian government, raising tariffs on them to 25%. However, dramatically now escalating said tariffs. Why? Again, not because of any of the business or non-tariff barriers in the country, but because of their policy on the war in Ukraine and buying Russian oil. Here he is just this morning from an interview with CNBC. Let's take a listen.
With India, what people don't like to say about India, they're the highest tariff nation. They have the highest tariff of anybody. We do very, very little business with India because their tariffs are so high. So India has not been a good trading partner because they do a lot of business with us, but we don't do business with them. So we settled on 25%, but I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil. They're fueling the war machine. And if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy.
I'm not too happy. So dramatically increasing tariffs on India for the war in Ukraine. Got it. This is genuinely a Lindsey Graham fever dream of the neocons. And we've covered it here for years now, since 2022, is everyone's furious with India and with China. By the way, yeah, interesting, China is not listed in that, isn't it? Even though they're on a pause right now. The two largest buyers of Russian oil. Russia, of course, able to sell oil out on the market. In fact, the Indians and the Chinese are getting a discount on the oil because the rest of the world is not buying it. And they're using those profits to fund the war machine. Now, okay, I mean, you can be upset about that, but everyone should ask, should U.S. trade policy with its 10th largest trading partner, which is what India is, if you look at overall bilateral trade, be subject to the war in Ukraine? The war in Ukraine. Just so everybody understands here now, we have two separate instances of Trump using tariffs to enforce foreign policy goals which have no impact on any of us. First is Canada, if you'll recall, when Trump put out his tweet where he said something along the lines of, wow, Canada just recognized Palestine. That's going to impact our trade. What? So our
tariffs on
tariff
maple
rate
syrup going up
on maple syrup and lumber is going to be impacted by the Canadian government's and oil. Yeah, great example. Is going to be impacted by the Canadian government's position on Palestine. So in this case, because Trump has unsuccessfully been able to wind up the war in Ukraine, something he said that he would do before he was even in office, is now tariffing India at a very, very high rate because they're buying Russian oil. Something, by the way, that his own vice president and others, when the Biden administration was considering doing this, spoke out against that very policy, using the full force of the empire and punishing more important allies for the purpose of protecting Ukraine and trying to, quote, force peace over there. Also, guys, let's all be honest here. We've punished the Russian economy into the ground, right? Supposedly, from the way that the Western sanctions. They're doing fine. Their GDP and all that. It's not also, by the way, not just because of oil, it's because of their own domestic war production and more. I'm not saying this wouldn't hurt, but we're all, like, let's think about the consequences. Like if you import something from India, or if you have some business relationship, whatever, do you really think that you should have to pay more for that or have a shortage of it because of the war in Ukraine? This is a Biden policy.
And if you think about it, our sanction policy has created the circumstances that you're talking about, that the Russian economy is doing well-ish, but significantly because of the war. It's this Keynesian situation where war production and production for that effort is driving economic growth.
Absolutely.
So we've put them in this position where if they unwind the war, which is what they want them to do, then they will suffer a short-term economic setback. So our own sanctions policy actually incentivizes them to keep the war going. If our economic policy towards Russia was to balance out their economy so that the war machine was not such a central part of it, that would actually then free up the Russian kind of political calculation on which Putin rests to be able to then leave the war without the economic ramifications. Now, maybe he still wouldn't because he's just war-mad lunatic, but he would have the opportunity to be able to do so without the short-term political hit of an economic crash.
Yeah.
Because just like Netanyahu, just wants to go from Monday to Tuesday and keep himself alive, keep the war going. If if it's easier to do A than B for a politician, that politician is usually going to do A.
Yeah, and just broadly, I mean, they're like, you only care about this because you're Indian. Yeah, that's definitely the only reason. It's not that I haven't said anything similar about Vietnam or about the Philippines or any of the other critical allies in Asia, which are non-Chinese. A classic thing that you would want to do, let's say some Kissingerian style realpolitik would say, okay, our global, whatever you want to call it, competition, adversary, etc., is China. So what do? All of the countries around China, what would you want? You would want some decent relations, which is why we should maybe not hit Japan with a 50% tariff, or Korea, or, I mean, I can go down the list, Philippines, India, any of these other powers, and we would say, we want all of these people to have great economic relationships there. U.S. manufacturers can still benefit from trade in Southeast Asia and in Asia without having to rely on bolstering the Chinese economy, and to make sure that the U.S. maintains whatever its economic giant and power there. By the way, this was a Trump administration policy, as you all might recall, Apple announcing that it would move production from China to India. These are strategic goals, which I'm very okay with. Again, it has nothing to do with my heritage or whatever. I'm saying broadly, if they could move it to Vietnam for all I care, I don't care. All right, just get it out of China. My point is just that this is completely counter to the Europe first mentality that the Biden administration had with this religious obsession with NATO, punishing nations like China, India, and subjecting our entire foreign policy to the war in Ukraine, which again has nothing to do on any impact on any life of an American. And by the way, if sanctions or any of this could solve it, it would have happened a long, long time ago. And in fact, every single day that the war continues, Ukrainian people are suffering. They're raising their age to 60, which we'll get to in a little bit. And now you're isolating an ally, again, or fine, a trading partner, which I think is very critical in maintaining strategic balance in Southeast Asia. So with that, go ahead.
The line that you only care about this because you're Indian would actually make a lot more sense if it was you only care about this because you're American.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
like, look, they're a huge trading partner. Do you like generic pharmaceuticals?
I would say the same thing about Taiwan.
Like
I would say the same thing about any of these countries. By the way, Taiwan is an even more important trading partner. Guess who also got hit with the tariff? If you want to know, under these. This is the point: is that the policy makes no sense. It's computed stupidly, and here explicitly, the original 25% is about non-tariff barriers. Fine, it's true. By the way, India is an insane economy. The way that they shut out Western investment, I don't blame them per se, because if I were them, I'd probably do the same thing.
We still export looked it up 50 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot. Oh, well, okay. Their theory is we want total control of our economy because we don't trust the West and we don't trust China.
Looks pretty good.
I mean,
But also, aren't they 2 out of 3 on the things we're supposed to care about? Like, the things that countries are supposed to do for us is they're supposed to support Bolsonaro and be mad
I forgot about
that he was not able to carry his coup out. They're supposed to support Israel, and I think Modi is like check and check. He's fine with both of those. But 3, you also have to hate Russia and love Ukraine.
Right, okay. Got it. So we should definitely, that's the way that we should be conducting it. So we wanted to give you guys a view into how this is being received in India. We've got a clip here from Republic TV. Our Indian viewers may know what it is. It's kind of hard to explain. Fox, I guess. I mean, it's not exactly the same media environment, but this is Arnab Goswami. He's, I guess, the Tucker Carlson-ish of India.
Still on
very popular
broadcast,
voice. Very, very popular voice. We'll say that. On Indian national television. Here's how they are reacting to it in nationalist India.
Trump escalates the tariff war with India. Trump says he's going to substantially increase tariffs on India. Trump puts out an aggressive post saying we're going to be further slapping more tariffs on India. And he's linking it to India's friendship and our business with the Russians. We have no response to Russia yet, but it's quite clear that we are caught in the middle of this Russia versus US trade battle, that we've become the linchpin of this battle. So it serves Trump both ways. He targets Russia, and of course he squeezes India at a time when we were ahead of the other countries in terms of negotiating a tariff deal with America. He's sending, I think, Mr. Witkoff in the next week to negotiate with Russia. So he's opening up a line of conversation with Russia, increasing the threat and pressure on India, opening a line with Russia, and then saying, using his advisors to say that India and China are together raising the pressure, raising part of the machine that is supporting the Russian economy. Now, these are all last-minute gambits by Trump. He's not liking the noises coming from India, or rather, he's not liking the lack of a response from the Indian government.
Man, okay, no offense, Indian TV. I don't know what is going on with the motion tracking there over on those cameras. All right, let me, call me. All right, we can talk. But the Indian Foreign Ministry has also put out the statement. Let's put it up there on the screen. They say India has been targeted by the United States and the European Union for importing oil from Russia after the commencement of the Ukraine conflict. India began importing Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe after the conflict. Interesting. The United States at that time actively encouraged such imports by an effort for strengthening global energy markets stability. India's imports are to ensure predictable and affordable energy costs to the Indian consumer. They are a necessity compelled by the global market situation. However, it is revealing that the very nations criticizing India are themselves indulging in trade with Russia. Unlike our case, such trade is not even a vital national compulsion. The European Union had bilateral trade of $67 billion in goods with Russia. In addition, it had trade in services estimated euro 17 billion in 2023. That is much more than India's total trade with Russia that year. Subsequently, European imports of LNG, in fact, reached a record 16.5 million tons, surpassing the last record of 15 million tons in 2022. Europe-Russia trade includes not just energy, but fertilizer, etc. Where the United States is concerned, it continues to import Russian uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, palladium for its EV industry, fertilizers as well as chemicals. In this background, the targeting of India is unjustified and unreasonable. And interestingly enough, actually, Modi this morning basically is like, yeah, we're just going to keep buying Russian oil. And we'll see you guys on the other side. They're not taking this all that seriously. And increasingly, with the conflict with Russia, you're watching all of these crazy belligerent actions, which again are straight out of Lindsey Graham. Let's put C4 up there on the screen. So, for example, there was this more recent development from the Russians in response to Trump's deployment of nuclear submarines, where former President Medvedev said that NATO countries have has blamed NATO countries and says that Russia will now, quote, abandon a moratorium on short and medium-range nuclear missiles, and said Moscow would take further steps in response. This was after Trump went after him for making belligerent statements about the conflict and deployed nuclear submarines publicly, saying that if we need to, of course, we have the ability to strike Russia back. Well, at the same time, what's happening in Ukraine? Let's go ahead and put C6, please, up on the screen. The Ukrainian army now opening its ranks to the 60-plus club to volunteer for military service. Contract terms say 1 year enlistment, medical clearance, and no upper age limit. This was after a revelation couple of years ago now at this point, that the average age of the Ukrainian military at that time was in the 40s, and they're already losing thousands of people on the front line. They're losing territory. This is despite the fact the Trump administration has accelerated weapons going to the country, including Patriot missile batteries, which we massively depleted for another country called Israel. It's just all so preposterous. And just to cap it all off, Ryan, at the same time we're supposedly defending democracy in Ukraine, let's go ahead and put the next one up there, C7 please, up on the screen, is that Ukrainians recently took to the streets to protest Zelensky for cracking down on corruption watchdogs. Quote, fighting corruption has been a central issue for Ukrainians, and new curbs on watchdog agencies have alarmed many. So Zelensky and his top people, quote, granted the general prosecutor control over Ukraine's main anti-corruption bodies, which, quote, many citizens fear will roll back reforms introduced after a pro-democracy revolution more than 10 years ago. The demonstrations were the country's largest since 2022 invasion, were peaceful, but the crowds simmered with rage after a population that survived nearly 3.5 years of war, drone attacks, loss of loved ones, etc. And now, supposedly the grandmaster democracy champion, Zelensky himself, is cracking down on the very anti-corruption institutions which were modestly pointing out the billions of dollars of money laundering and others that have been wasted on this conflict by the West. That's who we're all supporting, and that's why we're now tariffing India and putting our relationship with them subject so that Zelensky and his cronies can continue their anti-corruption, crackdown in their own country. That's what we're all paying for. And we're paying for, Ukrainian yarn shops and pensioners while people here are going to lose Medicare and SNAP. Makes a lot of sense, obviously.
Yes, you would think that sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and canceling the elections would root out the corruption there, but turns out there's still work to be done. But that work will not be done by the anti-corruption groups that Zelensky is getting rid of. By the way, one amazing quote from Trump on Sundays. He said, you know, if he gave this month-long ultimatum to Putin, then he's like, actually, it's 10 days because I don't trust that he's going to do anything. And if you don't do it, or else, you know, you make peace or else. And they said, well, what else? He said, I'm going to sanction them. And then Trump said, well, there will be sanctions, but they seem to be pretty good at avoiding sanctions.
Yeah, that's
real tough talk.
And so that's basically where we're at. I mean, the Indians have effectively called the bluff, and they're like, okay, fine, let's go for it. And their theory is, yeah, we'll sign a trade deal, and all of this will go away. And so actually, you know, even the Ukrainians are basically, if that's true, are being used as a pawn in negotiations with India over trade. It's not like any of it all matters, but you know, inside of India, this is not being met well, just from what I can see in terms of looking at public opinion and the way that the Biden administration previously treated them. They thought it would be different, but it turns out that the new boss is actually crazier than the old boss.
I'm curious for a second, but I think what Trump doesn't understand here is that when you are starting at 25% tariffs, that's an unserious tariff rate because it would decimate trade between India and the U.S. if it stayed at 25%. Like it would seize it up. It's well over the rate at which companies are able to just absorb this hit and keep moving.
Yeah.
So therefore, anything above that is meaningless because 25 is already killer. So they're at 25 now, and Trump is like, I'm going to make it significantly higher. It's like, well, are you? It's like the difference between 25 and 50.
People talked about this with China.
To most
60
companies,
and 150 makes no
difference. Like that's it. You're not making money at 25 or at 50. So both of them are prohibitive. So that's why I think India can be like, all right, bro, well, like, talk to us when you're not at 25.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you know, just broadly, it is their foreign policy right now. Our trade policy, our economic policy, is focused on Israel and on Ukraine, and has nothing to do apparently with the rest of us.
Poor Bolsonaro. He can't even crack the top two.
Bolsonaro. That's apparently why we should pay more for coffee. By the way, as a coffee fanatic, I don't know if everybody knows this. The coffee prices right now are out of control. Go and take a look at coffee futures, largely because of these Brazil tariffs, and there was some horrible storm or something like that killed a bunch of the coffee crops. So yeah, if you like to drink coffee every day, even if low-rate coffee, all of that, well, I have bad news for you. It's probably going to go up by 20-30% based upon the futures markets that I was looking at recently.
People need to sacrifice for Bolsonaro.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I should pay more for coffee for Bolsonaro. Makes a lot of sense. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.